Hello folks, welcome back to Hist Factory, where you ride through history while being entertained. Aren't wars always brutal? Can't we just ban this? Exactly our thoughts. World War II changed the world as it destroyed and killed 100 million people in just 6 years when it was fought. Today, we cover some of the deadliest wars in the history of humankind. We look at countries that were involved in them and the casualties caused by them. What were the reasons why these wars occurred? How did they change the world and brought it to a standpoint? We start off with the war that changed America forever at number 10, the Civil War of America. In terms of casualties, the American Civil War was the bloodiest and deadliest combat ever waged in human history. As a result, fighting goes down in history as one of the bloodiest battles ever fought. The conflict was fought between the states of the Confederacy and the Union. As a result, horrific warfare is also referred to as a state war. The American Civil War depicted a scenario in which tensions existed between the country's southern and northern states. It had been dragged into conflict because of pressing issues such as state rights, slavery, sectional disputes, and so on. From 1861 through 1865, the blood feud was still going on. However, the Union won the battle in the end. From 1861 through 1865, the blood feud was still going on. However, the Union eventually won the battle. Next up on the list is China at number 9, Chinese Civil War. The Chinese Civil War is worthy of mention on this list because it was a severe civil war. The conflict arose from a disagreement between the Republic of China and the KMT, or Kuomintang government. From 1927 to mid-1951, China was embroiled in a civil war. The main aim of this bloody conflict was to establish a genuine Chinese government. It was a war about legitimacy. As a result, this civil war will be remembered for its grandeur and significance in human history. This debate over legality lasted a very long time. At the end of the Chinese Civil War, it was the Communist Party who won control, and a new rule began in China. Next up is another war fought in China which was much more violent. Number 8, Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion is known to have been waged with a strong religious conviction. The war began in 1850 and continued to grow in power and length until 1864. During the war, the economic conditions that wreaked devastation in many parts of China took shape. The insurrection was intended to overthrow the Qing dynasty. One of the primary motivations for this uprising was a strong desire to establish strong central authority. Millions of Chinese civilians joined the revolt. According to the annals, this combat claimed the lives of over 20 million Chinese people. It is Hong Xiuquan's name that is inextricably linked to the Taiping Rebellion's very existence. Hong Xiuquan led the Chinese people in this tragic struggle and claimed victory. As a result of Hong Xiuquan's efforts, China may see a much-needed political upheaval. We travel south from China to its big neighbor for our number 7, the War of Kalinga. The conflict of Kalinga gives witness to one of the deadliest and bloodiest feuds in human history. During the era of the Mauryan Empire in 261 BCE, a heinous war was fought. The conflict was fought between Emperor Ashoka and the Indian state of Kalinga. The battle arose as a result of Ashoka's desire to incorporate Kalinga into his empire. Ashoka's army descended on Kalinga, and after a bloody battle, his army declared victory over Kalinga's army. However, the Kalinga War was so devastating and terrible that it irrevocably transformed Ashoka. The fight is thought to have killed over 1 million soldiers. After witnessing the devastation caused by the conflict, Ashoka pledged that he would never resort to violence and would investigate all forms of warfare. We go to the land of samurais for our pick at number 6, the Second Sino-Japanese War. The War of Kalinga bears testimony to one of the deadliest as well as bloodiest feuds in the history of humankind. The grievous war was fought back in 261 BCE during the reign of the Mauryan Empire. The battle took place between Emperor Ashoka and the Indian state of Kalinga. The war occurred because of Ashoka's ambition to claim Kalinga as part of his empire. Consequently, Ashoka's army pounced on Kalinga, and after fatal warfare, his army declared victory over the army of Kalinga. However, the Kalinga War was so devastating and terrible that it irrevocably transformed Ashoka. The fight is thought to have killed over 1 million soldiers. After witnessing the devastation caused by the conflict, Ashoka pledged that he would never resort to violence and would investigate all forms of warfare. The first of the world wars is at number 5, World War I. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria served as the catalyst for this massive conflict. Historians call this enormous conflict WW1, or the First World War. This epoch-making worldwide conflict began in 1914. It grew in stature over the next 4 years before coming to an end in 1918 on November 11th. The most lethal forms of conflict had manifested themselves in the United States, the Middle East, Europe, Russia, Turkey, Asia, and even Africa. Last, more than 5 million civilians died as a result of this fighting. The Second World War follows at number 4, World War II. Historians prefer to refer to this tremendous conflict as World War II. The combat began in 1939. The war lasted until 1945. Because of the immense powerhouses involved, the conflict is remembered in history. The Axis nations and the Allies were the two principal opposing forces. It is critical to highlight that WW2 involved more than 30 countries. The causes of WW2 are being disputed. Nonetheless, the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, the Spanish Civil War, the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Soviet-Japanese border wars, the emergence of fascism in Europe, and rising European tensions since World War I all had a role. As a result, World War II is often regarded as having commenced on September 1, 1939, when Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland. On September 3, the United Kingdom and France declared war on Germany. Germany and the Soviet Union partitioned Poland under the August 1939 Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. It delineated their respective spheres of influence in Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Romania. From late 1939 to early 1941, Germany captured or controlled much of continental Europe through a series of conflicts and treaties, forming the Axis alliance with Italy and eventually with other countries. We now go on to a war that lasts for 30 years, and it's very creatively called Number 3, the 30 Years' War. There was enough death and horrific combat during the 30 Years' War. The conflict was classified as a combat that lasted for a phenomenal 30 years, with precise dates ranging from 1618 to 1648. Historians would want to see it as a massively destructive as well as lawful warfare in European history. Until the 20th century, historians saw it as a continuation of the religious battle begun by the 16th century Reformation within the Holy Roman Empire. The Peace of Augsburg, signed in 1555, attempted to resolve this by partitioning the empire into Lutheran and Catholic states. Nonetheless, the development of Protestantism outside these bounds destabilized the settlement during the next 50 years. While most modern observers agree that religious disputes and imperial authority were important factors in precipitating the war, they contend that the fight for European dominance between Habsburg-ruled Spain and Austria and the French House of Bourbon drove its scope and extent. We are back in China for number 2, the Dungan Revolt. The Dungan Revolt, also known as the Tongji Hui Revolt or the Hui Muslim Minorities War, was waged in 19th century Western China, primarily during the reign of the Qing dynasty's Tongji Emperor. The Panthay Rebellion in Yunnan, which happened around the same time, is frequently included in the phrase. However, between 1862 and 1877, there were 2 waves of uprisings by various Chinese Muslims, predominantly Hui people in Shanxi, Gansu, and Ningxia provinces in the first wave, and then Xinjiang in the second wave. The insurrection was ultimately put down by Qing forces led by Zhuo Zongtang. The battle began with the Hui riots and the massacres of the Han Chinese, followed by Han retaliation massacres of the Hui. It caused major demographic changes in northwest China. It resulted in the deaths of 21 million people as a result of massacres, migration, hunger, and corpse-transmitted pestilence. Gansu lost 74.5%, or 14.55 million of its population as a result of the battle. Shanxi lost 44.6%, or 6.2 million, and northern Xinjiang lost 72.6%, or 0.34 million. Finally, we end in Russia for our number 1, Russian Civil War. In this regard, an abrupt and immediate reference to the illustrious Russian Civil War has to be made. The civil war in Russia was a bold initiative to tear Russia's geographical unity. Lenin's Bolsheviks assumed a role of great importance in this war. The battle lasted more than 3 years. To be precise, the war continued till 1921, since its inception in 1918. Apart from civilians, there were militaries, eminent people from various foreign lands, and monarchists directly involved in the war. In addition, rival militant socialists, notably the Ukrainian anarchists of the Makhnovshchina and left socialist revolutionaries, as well as non-ideological Green armies, opposed the Reds, the Whites, and foreign interventionists. 13 foreign nations intervened against the Red Army, notably the former Allied military forces from the World War, to re-establish the Eastern Front. 3 foreign countries of the Central Powers also intervened, rivaling the Allied intervention with the primary goal of retaining the territory they had received in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. We have come to the end of this ride. If you have liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Find more such entertaining yet informative videos at Hist Factory. See you all in the next one, guys!